Hey, Matt Scratch here. So I'm going to show you how to respool your welder with wire real quick and simple. All you need is a pair of standard needle nose pliers. So the first thing you do, just take off your cup there and grab your what's sticking out of your wire. There will always be some sticking out, and you just pull her straight out. It's a good time to think about changing your contact tip if you haven't recently. I literally just changed mine, so I'm gonna run with that. But there is a bit of a burr there at the end, so I'm having to take my contact tip out. Sometimes that'll happen. So I'll just cut that off, nice clean cut, and then contact tip comes right off. Since it's off, I'll leave it off, and it'll make it a bit easier. Okay, so another thing, you want to have your whip all laid out nicely, like in a nice loop is fine. You don't have to have it dead straight from the welder, but just make sure it doesn't have sharp bends. So I do apologize for the hose running down the center of the screen there, but be putting in this Lincoln 025 S6 MIG wire here, and that's going to work really good for all the sheet metal work that I normally do with this welder. Unfortunately, we're having some spring thawing action here, and it's flooding out my shop, but anyways, this Lincoln MIG Pak 140 welder, it's just got a quick clip here to pull the 11-pound spools off. It actually has this is like an adapter, because you can also run the smaller spools, the 2-pound I believe it is, spool on there. Anyways, you just make sure you check which direction your wire is feeding off, and then you just slap that beauty on there. One thing you can do first, I was going to mention, is if you have compressed air handy, this is a really good time to just blow everything out. Because a clean welder is a happy welder. You don't need all that junk feeding into your whole feed system and down your liner there. Get on there. A little bit stubborn fitting on here. I think this is the first time I've had actual Lincoln wire on here. Normally run the air liquide wire. There we go. Just a little bit of a tight squeeze on there, but it does fit. And then that's pretty standard. You pop that up, and then you want to have your pliers handy before you hope my knee's not in your way there. Before you pull this off here, and they just got it looped through a hole there. So get your pliers on it, because you don't want this stuff to just go squirrely in here. So you get it out and then trim it off. Make sure there's no kinked end or anything. Make sure it's gonna feed in perfectly straight. Put this up out of your waist so you can just feed that in there. This is pretty basic, but just little things make it go easier. Now, I don't like to waste my welding gas or whatever to run that wire through on the trigger. I run it all the way up by hand until it jams, at least. I don't use the feed. Some people crank up their wire speed for a minute and they use the feed to run it in. And you can see I'm just feeding it by hand. Not a big deal, it doesn't take that long. Gotta be careful, I'm unraveling here. Yike. This stuff's not fun. And that's why they have, this is for tension, to set the tension, this wing nut. You don't want to just crank that down because this centerpiece here is supposed to spin lightly, and so when this pulls on the, when the feed system pulls on the roll, it's to keep the roll from continuing to rotate after the feed stops, which would create a slack spot here, and then you'd have that wire coiling off the side like I had there, and that of course would jam up the works. Actually has a little notch in it to line up with the corresponding dowel on the back of this piece here. So make sure you have that lined up. I didn't at first, and the spool was in here a little crooked. Okay, so the wires come all the way out the other side here. So we'll put that contact tip back on in a minute here. But you do want to make sure that you've got these things tensioned properly. And you also want to make sure there are different sized rollers, like drive rollers. Like here's my 030 drive roller right there. And I keep all mine as well as my spare contact tips just down here in the bottom of my welder, so I always know where they are. So make sure you have the right one on there so you don't have any slippage there. And then you put that down and put that on there, and you just want to have it tensioned kind of by feel on there, how tight you have it. You want it clamped down enough that it's not going to slip, and not enough that you're putting, not so much that you're putting undue pressure on those rollers. I'm not sure how to really describe how much tension that is, but don't overdo it, that's all I can say. And here, this one's a little easier, like you just kind of roll it by hand, the spool, and see how much it kind of rolls after you stop. You don't really want it to roll, you want it to stop right away. That's the idea of this tension nut. So just tension it a little more if you need, but same thing, don't overdo it, because your drive motor's going to be working to pull that spool over. So the more you tension that, you know, it's just putting strain on there. So this one pretty well stops right away. You can see right away that wire wants to spool off there, off the side if that goes slack. So you do want to have that tension just right. But this welder, I've probably run about 10 of these 11-pound spools through here already without a single glitch. Like seriously, this thing never jams up on me. It's an amazing welder. So we're just gonna put the contact tip on now, because I you know, put a nice end on there. It should slide right in there. And just make sure you get that good and tight, because that is what conducts the electricity to the actual wire. So it's a very important part to have a nice clean one on there, and have it threaded on nice and tight and a good here. So connection. These contact tips are size specific, so make sure you have the correct tip for your wire size. Also, if you are switching from flux core to regular MIG wire or vice versa, you will have to change the polarity down here. You'll have to switch those terminals. You can see on the little chart here, it'll tell you where you need to be for what you're welding, so pay attention to that as well. Now your cup, or whatever you want to call it here, you just gas tip. I don't know what this is called on a MIG for sure. I think it's still called a cup. Just take your needle nose and clean out any splatter that's built up in there, because that splatter, if it builds up all the way in there, you can see there's a ceramic insulator in here, and that's what keeps the electricity insulated from the outside here, so that you don't short out on stuff. So when you get a build up of splatter in there, your welder can actually start to sputter from it. It's a bad thing, so make sure that you're keeping that clean in there. Keep a check on it, especially if you're doing any overhead welding. You can get pretty big chunks that can fall in there and short out your contact tips, so keep an eye out for that as you're welding. So that's it for today on Matt's Garage. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Have yourself a great day.